Politics by Aristotle, translated by Benjamin Jowett. Ebooks at 8A 2007. This book, this web edition, published by Ebooks Adelaide at Adelaide, rendered into HTML by Stephen Thomas. Last updated Wednesday, August 25th, 15:51, 39 seconds, 2010. This work is licensed under a Creative Commons license. Available at http://licenses.org/creative-commons.by-nc-sa/2.5/au/. You are free to copy, distribute, display, and perform the work, and to make derivative works under the following conditions. You must attribute the work in the manner specified by the licensor. You may not use this work for commercial purposes. If you alter, transform, or build upon this work, you may distribute the resulting work only under a license identical to this one. For any reuse or distribution, you must make clear to others the license terms of this work. Any of these conditions can be waived if you get permission from the licensor. Your fair use and other rights are in no way affected by the above. Ebooks at Adelaide, the University of Adelaide Library, University of Adelaide, South Australia, 5005. The table of contents contains Book 1, Book 2, Book 3, Book 4, Book 5, Book 6, Book 7, Book 8. Politics by Aristotle, Book 1. Every state is a community of some kind, and every community is established with a view to some good for mankind. Always act in order to obtain that which they think good. But if all communities aim at some good, the state or political community, which is the highest of all and which embraces all the rest, aims at good in a greater degree than any other, and at the highest good. Some people think that the qualifications of a statesman, king, householder, and master are the same, and that they differ, not in kind, but only in the number of their subjects. For example, the ruler over a few is called a master, over more, the manager of a household, over still larger number, a statesman or king, as if there were no difference between a great household and a small state. The distinction which is made between a king and a statesman is as follows. When the government is personal, the ruler is a king. When according to the rules of the political science, the citizens rule and are ruled in turn, then he is called a statesman. But all this is a mistake, for governments differ in kind, as will be evident to anyone who considers the matter according to the method which has hitherto guided us, as in other departments of science. So in politics, the compounds should always be resolved into the simple elements, or at least part of the whole. We must therefore look at the elements of which the state is composed, in order that we may see in what the different kinds of rule differ from one another, and whether any scientific result can be attained about each one of them. Book 2, or 2. Book 2 or 2. He who thus considers things in their first growth and origin, whether a state or anything else, will obtain the clearest view of them. In the first place, there must be a union of those who cannot exist without each other, namely of male and female, that the race may continue. And this is a union which is formed not of deliberate purpose, but because, in common with other animals and with mankind, have a natural desire to leave behind them an image of themselves, and of natural ruler and subject, that both may be preserved. For that which can foresee by the exercise of mind is by nature intended to be lord and master, and that which can with its body give effect to such foresight in a subject, and by nature a slave. Hence master and slave have the same interest. Now nature has distinguished between the female and the slave, for she is not niggardly, like the smith who fashions the Delphian knife for many uses. She makes each thing for a single use, and every instrument is best made when intended for one and not for many uses. But among barbarians, no distinction is made between women and slaves, because there is no natural ruler among them. They are a community of slaves, male and female. Wherefore the poet says, "It is meet that Hellenes should rule over the barbarians." As if they thought that the barbarian and the slave were by nature one. Out of these few relationships between man and woman, master and slave, the first thing to arise is a family. And Hesiod is right when he says, "First house and wife and an ox for the plow." For the ox is the poor man's slave. The family is the association established by nature for the supply of men's everyday wants. And the members of it are called by Charondas, companions of the cupboard, and by the Epimenides, the Cretan, companions of the manger. But when several families are united and the association aims at something more than the supply of daily needs, the first society to be formed is the village. And the most natural form of the village appears to be that of a colony from the family, composed of the children and grandchildren, who are said to be suckled with the same milk. And this is the reason why Hellenic states were originally governed by kings, because the Hellenists were under royal rule before they came together, as the barbarians still are. Every family is ruled by the elders, and therefore in the colonies of the family the kingly form of government prevailed, because they were of the same blood. As Homer says, "Each one gives law to his children and to his wives." For they lived dispersely, as was the manner in ancient times. Wherefore men say that the gods have a king, because they themselves either are or were in ancient times under the rule of a king. For they imagine not only the forms of the gods, but their ways of life to be like their own. When several villages are united in a single complete community large enough to be nearly or quite self-sufficing, the state comes into existence, originating in the bare needs of life and continuing existence for the sake of a good life. And therefore, if the earlier forms of society are natural, so is the state, for it is the end of them, and the nature of a thing is its end. For what each thing is when fully developed, we call its nature, whether we are speaking of man, a horse, or a family. Besides, the final cause and end of things is the best, and to be self-sufficing is the aim and the best. Hence it is evident that the state is a creation of nature, and that man is by nature a political animal. And he who by nature and not by mere accident is without a state is either a bad man or above humanity. He is like the tribeless, lawless, heartless one, whom Homer denounces the natural outcast, is forthwith a lover of war. He may be compared to an isolated piece of dross. Now that man is more of a political animal than bees or any other gregarious animals is evident. Nature, as we often say, makes nothing in vain, and man is the only animal whom she has endowed with the gift of speech. And whereas mere voice is but an indication of pleasure or pain, and is therefore found in other animals, for their nature attains to the perception of pleasure and pain, and the intimation of them to one another, and no further. The power of speech is intended to set forth the expedient and inexpedient, and therefore likewise the just and the unjust. And it is a characteristic of man that he alone has any sense of good and evil, of just and unjust, and the like, in the association of living beings. Who have this sense makes a family and a state. Further, the state is by nature clearly prior to the family and to the individual, since the whole is of necessity prior to the part. For example, if the whole body be destroyed, there will be no foot or hand, except in an equivocal sense, as we might speak of a stone hand, for when destroyed the man will be no better than that. But the things are defined by their working and power. And we ought not to say that they are the same when they no longer have the proper quality, but only that they have the same name. The proof that the state is a creation of nature and prior to the individual is that the individual, when isolated, is not self-sufficing, and therefore he is like a part in relation to the whole. But he who is unable to live in the society, or who has no need because he is sufficient for himself, must be either a beast or a god. He is no part of the state. The social instinct is implanted in all men by nature, and yet he who first founded the state was the greatest of benefactors, for man, when perfected, is the best of animals. But when separated from law and justice, he is the worst of all, since armed injustice is the most dangerous, is the more dangerous, and he is equipped at birth with arms, meant to be used by intelligence, than virtue, which he may use for the worst ends. Wherefore, if he have not virtue, he is the most unholy and the most savage of animals, and the most full of lust and gluttony. But justice is the bond of man in states, for the admiration of justice, which is the determination of what is just, is the principle of order in political society.